Wild Strength podcast where we talk about all things wild and all things strength and everything in between. Today, my guests are Guy and Jeff from Western Hunt Fest, and the walk-up song that really Guy chose, but we're going to go and say that they both chose it, Zizek's Road by Stone Sour. Such a slow start.
Such a cool freaking song, right?
I didn't realize that song was so slow, and I'm a little upset you chose such a slow song.
No, it starts that way.
Hold on. I'm not getting walk-up vibes from it, but
maybe walk away vibes.
Yeah, for sure. We have Guy and Jeff here, and they kind of oversee all of Western Hunt Fest, and hopefully today we get to dive deep into that. But first, I'm going to let you two introduce yourselves. You can kind of decide who goes first, and then, we'll get into everything.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So I'm Jeff Duvall. I am one of the founders of the Western Hunt Fest, and that's all I'm about. That's it.
And I'm Guy Duplanche, one of the owners, co-owners of Western Hunt Fest, and we're missing the third stooge, Efrain Gonzalez. He's also one of the founders and co-owners. And who knows why he's not here right now, but he's not, so we miss you.
He's the recluse.
Yeah, I wanted to really dive into what was the inception of Western Hunt Fest? Where did this idea start? I moved back to Colorado last June, and so I had just missed one event, I believe, and then wasn't able to make it out to another one that you guys had. I think Joel Rather from Hunt Hike Harvest had told me about Western Hunt Fest, and I knew very little about it at the time. But yeah, where did it start? What was kind of the idea behind it? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so it really started like Efrain owns Pack 'em Out Apparel, and we used to go to the trade shows and just do all the 3D archery events and all this jazz. While we were at the 3D events, we were so competitive. Like we would like challenge each other on different things at all the different events, and we just had this idea of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if like we started an event with, like where you had to do like specific shots and whatnot, and then the idea just kept building for me at least, and I kept like poking him like, hey, we should do this, hey, we should do this, hey, we should do this. Well, Efrain is like a balls to the wall kind of guy, so like one day I got in his ear and he's like, let's do it. So we planned it, and from our first event, or from our planning to our first event was like, I think it was like 3 months. And we just went for it. We had this idea of a pack out challenge that we wanted to throw in there. We had this idea of elk calling that we wanted to throw in there. And then we wanted the 3D archery to be like this hunt specific archery course, So yeah, we drew it up and we ran with it. And we haven't stopped.
Where was the very first one that you guys did?
Our first event was in Bailey, Colorado at the American Bowman.
And how long? So last year was the first year that I had heard about it. Was last year the first year you guys ran it?
No, it was the year before that. Yeah, so last year was our second year.
And so this year you guys are having the huge championship round where you can, I was kind of listening to another podcast that you guys talked about the Western Hunt Fest on, and you can basically go to multiple different events and accumulate points that way. Is there, and I'm curious, do you have, say if you only go to one event, do you still have a chance to make it to this championship event if you only make it to one?
Yeah, so you can podium. So we'll have, the men's division, the women's division, and you can podium at each event. Now, the idea behind it is at some point we're going to get away from that model, I think. And your point accumulation will take you to the championship. If you want to try and get into the championship for that prize pack and you don't podium, say at the Air Force Academy, and you want to build your points for the season so you can get into the championship, well, then that's where the 2 and 3 event approach comes in. And we'll limit, how many, at this point, we'll limit how many attendees or contestants will make the Bailey event this year. So you can absolutely take top 3 at the particular event. If you fall just shy of it, go participate in another event, build your point for the season, and then get that invite to Bailey that way.
So will it be top 3 from each event can go to Bailey, and then the top overall can go to Bailey as well?
Yes.
And then I know you guys do a men's one, and then you're really trying to push the women's one this year, which I think will be super cool, and I'm excited to be a part of. And then there's also a partners one, which can be both men and women. Will there be a prize for all 3 of those, or is it just one total winner? What does that look like?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
so there's
Jeffrey.
prizes at all the different. So every competition we have, we're going to give away prizes. So like for our team pack out challenge, last year we gave away each competitor, we gave them both a rhino head because it was sponsored by Kafaru. This year we're probably going to change up the trophies a little bit, but each event we have from like our sprint challenge, they'll win a certain trophy. The archery, so we have day 1 and day 2. They'll both win a trophy. And then we have the pack out challenge solo for men and women. They both win a trophy. And then the elk calling contest. So everybody gets a trophy. We're still working out the details on like the prize giveaways, because there will be prize giveaways with them as well. But we're still trying to work through like who gets what and whatnot. But that's on
Sweet,
each individual
so I'm
level.
Okay. No, sweet. No, that makes sense. And then I'm going to kind of walk through like each event. So there's the 3D shoot, and it sounds like you guys have incorporated different, kind of like you said, like realistic type shot scenarios versus just shooting. What are some of those scenarios, or what is that?
So our 3D archery event, we add hunt specific tasks to each shot. So an example would be, we'll have you crawl from one pin to the shooter's pin before shooting from your knees. Another shot that we've done is we call it sheep legs, where they have to squat from one pin to the next pin and then pull back and shoot. But we just add like scenarios that you'll run into while you're hunting. So like if you have to sneak over to a buck that can't see you, you gotta crawl, you gotta be quiet, and then you gotta get there and you gotta just get your little window and take your shot. So we want to include education on every shot that we're throwing.
No, I think that's awesome. And I've always been a big proponent of, when I'm even training, just shooting by myself, like getting the heart rate elevated before you shoot in some shape or fashion. But obviously, unless if you have like the 3D targets or a setup like that, you can only get so real, right? You can only simulate a scenario so much. So then there's the pack out challenge. I know the weight is different for males as it is for female, or what is the weight for both of those, and then what does it look like for the partner one as well?
So with the pack out challenge in the men's division, you're looking at an average size elk, plus or minus right around 65 pounds for the rear quarters, in that 45-pound range for the front quarters. 4 10-pound bags representing loose meat, and you got your dead head, and then you have to carry your bow on at least one of your laps around. And the women's weight, which we'll be toying with a little bit this year, right? We just inked a deal with the Wild Sheep Foundation, and their women's hunt program is going to be the title sponsor for the women's pack out challenge. So we have been doing a mule deer, but we may end up doing a sheep to kind of focus on our partners over there for the women's pack out challenge. But generally speaking, you're somewhere around 15 to 20 pounds lighter on the women's pack out on those quarters. Same in terms of the head, same in terms of carrying your bow. On at least one trip. And then teams, you just split the load.
And what is the average distance that's covered? So say I've heard people say they tried it all in one lap. I hear that it usually fails when people try to do it all in one lap. So then it technically ends up being 2 laps. What is the average distance that's covered?
In the looking at the time and just taking all that in consideration, this year we're looking at half mile to 3/4 of a mile for a single loop, so a mile to a mile and a half course, just respecting the time and everything else that we have going on between the shoot and the sprint challenge and the seminars. And so they're going to be brutal courses. A lot of folks will get a little cocky and think that it's short, I could do that, no problem. But we're not taking it easy in terms of terrain and really testing everything. This ain't flat ground moving.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I've set a time or two myself. Like, it's a mile and a half, 2 miles. Like, I'll thug it out. I'll be all right. But like you said, there's the terrain that comes into play, and I know there's multiple different locations too. Are you guys trying to keep, like, how do you take into account timing for maybe one place the terrain isn't quite as hard as maybe another location? Is that taken into consideration as well?
Yeah,
To a point, I think that between the three of us and being psychopaths and really and like Jeff said, right, it's about education, and education comes in many different forms, right? And what we're hoping to accomplish is, can we put you on this loose ground? Can we put you on that side hill? Can we, have you scale those rocks with this pack on your back? And that's really what we're looking for at each venue. But then that's where that half mile to 3/4 of a mile comes into play. If we're over here on the Western Slope and you look at something like Cameo, and if anybody's familiar with Cameo, you look at Cameo and it's a moonscape. It's loose ground, super steep. So that course, we may shorten that course up, versus up in Reno at Silver Arrow Bowman, where you got a kind of a flatter playing field. So that distance is in consideration with the terrain.
No, that makes sense. And then there's I was kind of listening to the other podcast. You guys added the sprint and carry challenge. What does that one?
Jeff, you want it, or you want to take that one?
Take it.
So the sprint. All right. So you have initially, right, when we started this, it was, you had your pack out challenge, you had your archery event. And we're seeing dominance from a couple people in one skill set. So the idea was to kind of tie break that, combine both skill sets, that endurance and strength with that, precision behind the string, combine them and ramp that heart rate up, put the pressure of time on them, and call that, if you will, the tiebreaker between the pack out challenge and the archery event, right? It really will be kind of the leveler. So the idea is you'll have basically a 100-yard sprint with your shooting station in the middle, a target out at 50 yards, and if you have 3 arrows to send, so you'll run up, sprint to the the shooter's pin, let the arrow fly, grab the sandbag, either drag or carry, depending on the person you are, out the 50 yards, sprint back to the shooter's pin, let another arrow fly. From there, you run down to the initial starting line, run all the way back, grab the bag, bring the bag back to the shooter's pin, drop it, and let your third arrow fly. So if you have, call it a 3-minute time on that, you can, if you shoot an 8 or a 5, will add time to your total. If you shoot a 10 ring or a 12 ring, you have time deducted from your total. So you're gonna have to play the skills, right? I mean, you're gonna have to balance how good of a shooter am I when my heart rate is elevated, my respirations are up, and can I steady and pop a 10 or a 12 ring? There's going to be.
And how far is that shot that they're taking?
50 yards. So it's not. It's just son of a gun.
Yeah, and definitely. And I don't think 50 yards is maybe close for some, maybe far for some, depending on who you're talking to. But I think that's a solid distance for, especially if your heart rate's elevated, you're breathing heavy, you're fatigued. At 50 yards, trying to hit a small 10 ring on a target is going to be way more challenging than I think most people, even someone who's good at shooting 50 yards consistently. Like, past 50 is where, and I always say, people will ask, like, what's the farthest you're comfortable shooting at consistently? And for me is 60, and anything past 60, I probably wouldn't shoot at a live animal past 60, just because my consistency starts to decline after that. But even then, like, I can be confident as hell at 50 yards, but after all of that changes a lot of things.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see that. And again, it goes right back into that education, right?
Have seminars that you host at these events as well. Does that vary from event to event? Do you try to get the same ones? And what seminars are you guys hosting this year?
So right now we have, the idea is to have, with our overall model, right? We want the same folks back year in and year out, but we want those folks to do a cycle. So this year for like Raton, we have Joe Gillia from the Elk Bros. We have Jermaine Hodge that's going to be at an event or two with Tony Gilbertson, the Phelps boys. We have Drea Grangoth at What's Her Wild. And we're just adding people to it, as we go along, talking to Joel about doing one in terms of mountain fitness and getting ready for season. Whitney Tremmel, she hosts a podcast. We'll probably be, approaching her to talk about a seminar for the ladies in terms of strength and conditioning and getting in mountain shape. So, we really want to mix it up, but as we start to do the cycle and go into the big picture model, if you will, we want to mix that up so people are not having the same person speak at each event.
I think that also encourages people to go to different ones as well. Because if you have all of the same ones at all of them, right, you can pick and choose which one you want to go to versus, like you said, you have Elk Bros at one, Joel's at another, and I want to see both of them. Well, shoot, I got to make it to both of these events now because I want to see both of these seminars. So I think that's a really good idea. So it's a 2-day event. Can you pick and choose, like, I want to do the shoot on the first day, the pack out on the second day, or is it all happen on one day? Kind of what is the timeline of it?
So we'll start, we always start with our shooting event. It's going into it as we're on the mountain. So it starts with a shooting event. We'll come back, start seminars, have something to eat, and then we'll start the pack out challenge. And then we'll run the pack out challenge and the sprint challenge seminars. There's some concurrency there, so folks will be filling in and out of that. And then if we have the second day shoot, if we don't get through all the pack out challenge competitors and the sprint challenge, then we'll pick those up on Sunday.
So the part of that happens on both Saturday and Sunday.
Sorry, part of that model, Whitney, was that we would implement the shooting first, so that it was like a real life scenario, like. Shooting a 3D course kind of wears you out a little bit. So we wanted the competitors to really feel like the fatigue before they even started the pack out challenge, because in the woods, you're going to be hiking and hunting before you do the pack out challenge. So we wanted to have that realistic feel.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we always forget to mention, is that we thought this whole thing through, from start to finish. And that was a really important part to us. We wanted them to be fatigued before they started doing their pack out challenge, so that it gives them a real, this is reality. This is your reality. If you kill a bull 5 miles back, multiply this by 5, because this is what's going to happen.
No, yeah, I think that's awesome. And I didn't even, until you just said it, think about that makes total sense, having the shoot right before the pack out, because like you said, you're hunting in, you're shooting, you're tired from the effort that it took to even get on the animal, and then now you got to pack it out, and you probably kicked your shit in just getting to that animal, but now you got to get out of there with it too. So I think that's really smart. So then Sunday, is that just kind of for leftover activities? What does kind of the second day look like?
But yeah, so we'll have, we'll run the second course on Sunday, and then I don't even know if you heard what I was saying about, the shooting and stuff prior to the pack out. We'll run that second course on the second day, and then we'll pick up any stragglers, if you will, on the pack out and the sprint challenge.
And is the sprint challenge all on the second day?
No, we'll do that. We'll start that on Saturday as well.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think that's such a cool event, and I've done total archery challenges for a couple of years now, and I always have so much fun at those. And even then, just the shooting itself, hiking up the mountain, shooting those is such a challenge. But I appreciate what you guys have added from the pack out challenge, and then this year the sprint and the drag challenge, and then you even do the elk calling. I know at some of the tacks too, they'll do elk calling, but it's not necessarily a contest. And I imagine you guys have made it a contest because you are competitive, and I'm competitive as well. I think it's funny. I don't know if it was Guy or Jeff who had commented yesterday and just asking if I was going to win. And I'm someone who's so competitive, but I'm more competitive with myself than other people. And so more than anything, I just want to show up and show out what I can do, and then hope that that's enough to compete with everyone else who's showing up.
So the move in silence was BS, is what you're saying?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm training, I'm still training for it for sure. And then this can kind of go into how you can kind of train for either this event or even training for the backcountry, I know you guys have been hosting like the ruck challenge and trying to get people and get out there and rucking, and different strokes for different folks. I think there's like, I always am a proponent of like train to do, like do what you like to do, right? Because otherwise, if you're not doing what you like to do, you're not going to be consistent with it. You're not going to keep up with it. And it's really not going to do you any good in the end. But yeah, I think like I think I told Guy when I was recording with him the other day, I'm training for a half marathon right now. And for me, that's getting my cardio endurance up because I hate running. It's the worst thing in the world. But here I am, I'm pushing myself through it and I'm doing it, but I'm maintaining strength while I'm doing this, and I'm pushing the strength side of those things. And like I said, there's so many different ways to skin a cat. There's different ways that you can train for an event like this and train for the backcountry. And I think that's the cool part about it. But yeah, when I say I am very competitive and I plan to show up and show out. But I'm definitely not the type who's going to go out there and ruck every single day, because I know that my body does not handle it.
I think that everybody that has been doing the Ruck Out Challenge will agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.
We have
no, I would agree.
We have a few diehards that have just been. We had Mike Edgehouse did 25 miles in 3 days because he had to go on vacation. Was like, I'm not letting a week slack. I mean, it just goes to show you, right? Like, initially the miles were higher on that, and Jeff and Ethan were like, dude, what, like, seriously, like, who's gonna do those miles? And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. But the guys that are doing it are just killing it. I mean, it's been impressive to watch them get through it. So it's been really cool.
No, I think, and that kind of, like, I've had a similar conversation with someone else. Like, when I'm in it, I'm going to put the miles in because I know that I have to, but I also know I've prepared physically to be able to do that. And in different ways, right? Like I said, there's different ways to do it. But just going out there and doing it for the hell, I'll throw a ruck on every now and then and go for it. Like, I think it's fun. I like that. But day in and day out, oof, I'm a small person. That shit tears me up.
Prove it.
Yeah, it's been.
So kind of want to get into prove it. Okay, I'll show you. I'll show you. Yeah, I want to get into. So we've talked a lot about like what Western Hunt Fest is, and that was kind of like a big goal that I wanted with having you guys on, but really kind of want to get to know you two a little bit more beyond Western Hunt Fest. So I'll kind of ask specific questions to each person, no longer deciding who's going to answer it at this point. But Jeff, so you kind of said this is like your child, and you had an idea after going to all these TAC events, like you want something a little bit more realistic. How long have you been backcountry elk hunting or backcountry hunting, period? And kind of what led you to this outside of the TAC event?
Yeah, so I grew up in Colorado. I grew up in a small town in Colorado. So I've been a hunter like my entire life. Backcountry hunting is not really my thing. I'm more of like a 2 to 3 mile hunter, but like that's been my thing for years. I've been obsessed with hunting since, I mean, as long as I can remember, you know. But yeah, that's my thing.
I'm glad you said 2 to 3 mile hunter, because I for sure thought road hunter was going to come out of your mouth.
No, yeah,
we're going to be having a different conversation.
Hey, I get down on the road hunting. Don't you forget it.
Yeah, guys, similar question for you. I think you're not from Colorado originally, are you? Yeah, where are you from?
From the state that will remain nameless.
Okay. So did you grow up, like, I'm assuming also grew up hunting? I think you mentioned last time we spoke that you found hunting, you wanted to figure out how to do it in Colorado, so you got to Colorado as quickly as you could. Yeah, how long have you been here, and did you hunt before you came to Colorado?
Yeah, I've been hunting Colorado for the last 6 or 7 years, primarily just chasing elk. But I didn't grow up hunting. It was something that always intrigued me. And not necessarily the hunting aspect of it. I don't even know how to explain it. I just remember being on the lake with my uncle, and we'd be fishing, and there'd be pigs and, you know, deer running around the lakeside. And it was just something that it would stop me from fishing. And I'd just be intrigued, you know, to watch those animals. And I'd wake up. I was in junior high, and I'd wake up at 3, 4 in the morning so I could watch Bill dance, and the hunting shows would come on after that. And I think that was really the trigger. And I never had the means. I grew up, in South Central Los Angeles, looking at the Hollywood sign. So I'm kind of a hood rat guy, and I never saw anything behind the Hollywood sign. Right, it was just the Hollywood sign, and I got a hair up my butt and decided to kind of explore what hunting meant, and archery hunting intrigued the living heck out of me. And in my early 20s, I saved up a few bucks and got on eBay and found a Matthews, I think it was a Matthews Apex with 6 arrows, a mix of broadheads, and a release, and I ain't never looked back.
Nice,
and
yeah.
Yeah, it's been just die hard since then. I've done everything under the sun, and hunting is the one constant in my life. Less my family since I started.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you go rifle hunting ever, or are you strictly a September guy? September's your season, and when it's done, it's done.
Heck to the no. If you told me that it was bolo season, I'd be out there spinning that sumbitch around and throwing it whatever whatever tag I had. I will hunt with a boomerang if that's all that's available in that season. I just want to hunt. I want to be in the field chasing animals and just experiencing everything that hunting brings to the forefront for us. So no,
I would agree with that. Jeff, what about you? Are you strictly an archery elk guy, or do you like to go out and do lots of other things as well?
Yeah, so I'm mostly archery. I love everything else though. I love anything. Like I love hunting birds with a shotgun. I love rifle elk hunting. I love rifle deer hunting. But if I can pick like one specific hunt for the rest of my life, it's going to be archery elk for sure in September.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had a conversation with a friend actually earlier today, and I think I was telling guys I'm set on getting a bear. Like when I moved here last year, I drew a bear tag, and I ended up not filling the tag, but I had one 17 yards in front of me that I made a very rookie mistake on and ended up spooking this bear. I was telling Guy I had been sitting in this wallow waiting for elk actually for like 5 or 6 hours, and this almost close to last light, this pushing 400-pound cinnamon bear comes in at 17 yards. And at this point, I'm relaxed because I've been there for like 5 or 6 hours. I haven't seen nothing. I'm not smelling nothing, whatever. I'm just hoping for the best. And this bear comes in, and I don't have an arrow nocked. My bow's not even in my hand. I'm not facing in the right direction for me to draw back. And so I have to make all of these movements to even get in a position to shoot. And sure enough, the second I like go to pick my bow up, he looks up at me and he darts away. And I'm like, I'm on it. Like that is what I'm going after. But anyways, I was telling a friend about that, and he's like, I've just never really had the desire to hunt, to predator hunt. And I'm like, I'll hunt anything. Like I want to learn about hunting coyotes. I want to learn about hunting bears. I want about like bird hunting, all of that. Like any opportunity I can get out there to hunt is an amazing opportunity to me. But I do like the challenge of archery hunting, bow hunting. You have to get so close to the animal, the chase of it, when you have to stock up on an animal. Like I think that's unmatched, but I'll do any other style of hunting too.
Yeah.
Okay, I have questions for our host. So you said it was a rookie mistake. So what's the corrections on that going into a similar situation?
Yeah, I like stay ready, right? Like I shouldn't have, no matter how long I was sitting that wallow, I should have never got to a point where I'm sitting down slouched with my arms crossed because I haven't seen anything like that. I should have never got to that point because like it wasn't last light yet. There was still light. There was still opportunity for something to come in, and I had just like mentally, it's the mental game at that point, mentally had given up. Like I ain't seen nothing, so I'm not going to see anything. And sure enough, the bear of a lifetime comes walking in, and I'm eating my words. Like I shouldn't have got to the point where I was so comfortable. And that's something I started hunting in Texas, and sitting in a blind. I would think that would maybe carry over, but I think I had just spent most of the season up until that point on my feet. Like, oh, what is it? Just stalking or walking around. And so that sitting there, that was really the first time I had just sat this season so far. So I'm at any given moment ready to just get up and walk out because I don't sit well anyways. Like sitting in a blind is my least favorite thing to do. But like I said, you offer me a hunt and I'm gonna go do it, and so I will. But yeah, I won't. I will never find myself in a position where I don't have an arrow knocked and I'm not
There
at
it
least
is.
facing. Yep, I didn't have an arrow knocked, and I wasn't like I'm a lefty too, and I was so if I were to draw back in the position I was in, I wouldn't have even been shooting in the direction of this bear with where I was sitting. So I should have been sitting facing the entire time in a direction that I could shoot where I was because he came where I was expecting to see an elk. Like I have no excuse, and I should have had an arrow knocked, and I should have been ready. So that's you stay ready. You don't ever relax when you're out there until you get back to your tent or you get back to the cabin or wherever it is. You got to stay ready the entire.
That's it. I forgot what my other one was. You blew it out of the
Bro,
water with that answer, so we're good.
so I was helping somebody blood trail an elk, right? And this was going like
Mm-hmm.
2 to 3 hours deep already. So I was carrying my bow. I was being a good boy, carrying my bow, carrying my bow, carrying my bow. Well, it was like middle of the day, so I set my bow down and I still kept trailing. Dude, I shit you not. A bull walks straight into me like 10, 15 yards, doesn't see me, walks past me. I'm crawling. I'm trying to get the attention of the other two guys that are tracking. Neither one of them have their bow, so I'm like crawling like crazy trying to get to my bow. By the time I get to it, all I have is just a butt shot. Done. But it sucked to learn that lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, I was even, and I'll kind of reference, maybe it'll be out by the time this one gets posted that I did with Guy. Another couple rookie mistakes. Something similar. 2 times it happened actually. I was just like a hurry up and wait kind of person. Like get to the spot that I'm trying to get to as fast as I can. So then once I'm there, I can start walking around or sit or whatever it is I'm going to do. And 2 different times this past September, I bumped a bull doing that. I wasn't like so now, like if you were to ask that same question, what would I do? Like I'm hunting from the second I leave my tent or from the second I leave my car, I'm hunting. Like there's no telling when I'm going to see anything.
That's
But I
why
was just
Jeff
in
is a
such
two
a
to three
rush.
mile hunter.
Yeah, for sure.
That's exactly. I mean, really, that's what that stems from, right? Is you're trying to go deep. You're trying to go deep. You make these assumptions, and then you step out the truck, and then within half a mile of the road, there's the bull, right? I mean, it happens to all of us, And
Yeah.
backcountry is an excellent experience, right? It's amazing. But what is backcountry at this point, right?
Yeah.
Everything is roaded. I mean, you're having to go, backcountry could be 16 miles, up the road and then 2 miles in. Is that not backcountry?
I
you
would
know,
agree. Yeah. I would
so
agree.
it's really about opportunity. And I think, the more and more people that drive deep, the shallower that, you want to go. I mean, honestly, I don't see many people past a mile, to be honest with you. You get out 2 miles, there's no one there. And then if you get further out there, there's really no one there. I mean, it really amounts to what experience do you want to have. Jeff's looking to play with bulls and kill bulls.
Yeah.
And if you can kill a
Yeah, and
bull
it's
within
different where
a
I hunt.
mile of the truck,
All the guys where I hunt, they want to go to the backcountry. So you go 5 miles back, and guess what? You're in a party of guys. You go down a little bit and up the steepest hill you can find, and there's nobody there. And the elk are there, and they're loud, and they're screaming, and then you go back to the trailhead, and everybody says, "There's no elk in here. They're not talking. The rut must not be kicked up." All false. They're just going to the wrong spot. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's funny that you say that, and I think social media and different names that I won't use are portraying that, right? Like, oh, you have to go further and further and further to find things. And I had a similar experience. Like, we were pretty deep in one of the places that I was at, and we were bumping hunters all day long. And I'm like, I'm surprised that there's that many people that deep. And then you go, and where we're hearing these elk bugling are not far off from the road at all, but we're deep in
Yep.
there. And I'm like, man, we wasted effort, and no effort is wasted, right? Like, and even for me, since I'm still so new to this, every experience is a learning experience for me. But I just had to laugh because I'm like, man, we are deep and we are around so many other hunters and we're bumping them left and right. And all these bugles are coming from the road. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's so flipping common. So common.
and I think and maybe we talked about this a little bit too last time, Guy, is like the challenge of it, which I think there's a shared camaraderie in all hunters who enjoy the pursuit, who enjoy the chase, who enjoy the challenge of what hunting. We can even call it mountain hunting, right? Like you said, backcountry hunting can be you drove 10 miles deep in a mountain and you hiked 2 miles from your truck. You're still 12 miles deep in the mountains. So it can look different for everybody, but I think it's the challenge of it that, yeah, what that shared camaraderie is between a lot of hunters. But I think then you have some people who just want it to be challenging, right? No longer are you hunting or trying to get better at your hunting tactics. You're just trying to find the most hard thing that you can do. And meh, that's not always a good option.
No, it's not, because I blow a ton of tags doing that. But I enjoy the solitude of that as well, right? Where it's me and me, right? And the occasional bull. But it's what are you after while you're out there?
The occasional bull. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Jeff, are you big into solo hunting? Do you always like to have someone who goes out with you? What is a typical like hunt experience look like for you?
So for me, it's solo. It's mostly solo. I do hunt with Efren on occasion, but it's solo. I have ADD, so I love to just go my own way. I love to call, so like I will, dude. I will be going. I'll have a plan, and I'm going straight to there, and I hear a bugle, and I'm gone the complete opposite way, and I'm boom, 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 boom. So I can hike pretty good, and I just don't like to hunt with people, honestly. Like I'm too indecisive, and I just want to do it my own way. Like hunting is my passion, and like when you're with other people, you kind of gotta steer and curve and do kind of what the group wants to do, and that's just not how I like to hunt. Um, I hunt with Efren sometimes, but when I hunt with him, he's like, yeah, let's do whatever. So he's on board. Like let's just go and do it. So usually I don't hunt with anybody though. I like to do my own thing.
Yeah, me and Guy kind of talked about that as well. And I had my first kind of like solo hunt experience at the end of September, and I can see there's pros and cons to being with people, and then pros and cons to being solo. Had I put a bull down by myself, whew, that would have been a hefty pack out. But I would have done it, right? Like you're out there, you get it done, and you got to get it out of there. But I think too, for me, earlier on, the benefit to hunting with someone else is the learning experience, right? But I did learn a lot hunting by myself too, right? So I think there's value in doing both. But I can relate in that, like, the more I know and learn and like want to be able to make my own decisions, exactly that. I want to be able to make my own decisions. And I like humbly will brag for a second, like going into this elk season, like I did as much research as one possibly could going into their first archery elk season. And so I went into it not knowing everything by any means, and I don't know that I'll ever know everything, but knowing a lot for someone who's never done it before. But I would never speak up because I was like, I'm new here, right? Like it's not my place to say like what I want to do, where I think we should go, all those kind of things, because I'm new here. I'm the new person. But when you're out there by yourself, it's on you. You get to go where you want to go. You get to do what you want to do. And there's solitude in that, but then like just the ability, yeah, to trust your gut and to trust your instinct, I think is big too.
I think there's a lot to be said about someone that is well studied in the game and is new to the game, right? I think there is less fog from all the influx of seasoned experience, from this training module and that training module and who I'm listening to this year with the calling. So I think I mean, if the person does it right, and I think, and Whitney, you strike me as that person, and that's probably why you're able to, lend some of those season successes to it. You just don't have the cloud, right? And you studied up enough to be dangerous, right? Enough to have some successes, but you didn't have the influx of garbage. I shouldn't call it garbage. I don't mean it like offensively to the modules and things like that. The outside noise is probably better, right? You didn't have all that outside noise that you're carrying from season to season to season to season. That's a lot of weight. And I see a lot of folks have a good start to the season, have some trials in that early part of the season, and totally acquiesce to the cloud, right? I mean, it's just noise at that point, and they can't make a decision and be decisive about what they should be doing in that moment, even having all the information. It's crazy. So steer clear of a ton of mentorship.
Yeah. So going back to the way I was raised hunting, right? So I was raised in a family of absolute killers, but they didn't do it the way we all did it. And I learned some horrible habits. I don't know, to them it was easy, so they didn't teach you a lot of the essentials, right? So when I came out hunting on my own, I had to relearn it. And a lot of the stuff I had to relearn on my own. Like that one on, or that one with yourself, it's challenging, but it gives you so much, and there's a lot to it. But growing up the way I did, you learn a lot of bad habits.
I always joke when I first got into archery, like I almost think I was better at shooting first because I had zero bad habits and I would draw back the same way every single time because I wasn't thinking as much about it. And then now the longer that I shoot, you develop bad habits, or maybe just you're trying to change one thing, and maybe you want to add a little bit to. I was trying to pick up more speed, and so I add a little bit to my draw length, and that changes a lot of the things. And I didn't think about it at the time because I didn't know enough to think further on down the line how much that was going to affect my draw and my shot and all of that. And I know now, but it's almost. I try to approach most things in life with this like beginner's mindset and this learning mindset that like, yeah, the concept of mastery is great, and like to be able to master something I'm sure is very fulfilling, but I almost would rather not master something and continue to be like on that process and the journey towards mastery, because like I said, you can always learn something new, and the one time you go out with someone else, maybe they hunt differently than you, but that doesn't mean it's wrong, right? Like someone might really like going in 2 miles deep and sitting a tree the whole time, and that's okay. Maybe they're successful every year doing that, or maybe they do like the still hunting. Or some people like to call, some people don't like to call. Like maybe some people never found success calling, so they don't do it. And so there's so many, once again, different strokes for different folks, so many different ways to skin a cat, that there's always so much you can learn from different people. But yeah, I think the value in learning stuff in advance, kind of like I said, I watched as many YouTube videos as possible. I was telling Guy, like, I could have skinned a bear in my sleep with how many YouTube videos I watched on how to skin a bear, because I was planning on doing that hunt. I was planning on doing that hunt by myself. And like I knew everything I needed to know about a bear hunt going in by myself. But you don't know until you actually do it. Also, you've got to put your boots on the ground. You've got to get out there and you've got to do it. And I think there's the lessons learned in that is completely unmatched.
And that's the purpose of the
Pack Out Challenge. It's an amazing way
Challenge.
of life. That's the purpose of the entire event. Is to
Absolutely.
really hone in on all that, see what those shortcomings are, right, and really test every skill set that you're going into the woods with.
Yeah, I like it's very well, and obviously credit to you, very very well thought out, like, and from an outsider's perspective, and I'm glad I've had you guys on here to be able to ask these questions, because from an outsider's perspective, it's just this cool ass event where you get to just test your skills, right? But I didn't realize the amount of like thought that went into having the 3D shoot first, so you're a little fatigued by the time you get to the pack out, and you have like specific terrain that you're trying to test for the pack out. It's not just like a ruck around a track or something like that. And then, like you said, kind of adding in the sprint and drag challenge. Like you said, you have guys who are good in one and maybe not so good in the other. So that's going to be like the differentiating factor. And it's like a very well thought out event that I'm super excited to be a part of. Where do you see, so earlier on, maybe we'll kind of end up coming right back to Western Hunt Fest type questions. Where do you kind of see this going in the future?
So Jeff is the self-proclaimed dreamer, and I support him.
Yeah, love that.
We'll just say it like that. It's Western Hunt Fest for a reason, and I don't want to divulge too much too early. But what we're doing right now is just the tip of the iceberg for this event. There's so much more that we do in Western hunting. So many more, facets and weapons and things like that. And for Jeff's dreams and what we're planning, nothing is off the table. Is about as far as I'm willing to take that in the moment. But yeah, it is. This will be the biggest Western hunting shooting event competition in the West in the next couple of years. Period, bar none. Nobody's gonna touch us.
Yeah, I think that's great. Jeff, do you want to add to that? Where do you kind of see? I know Guy kind of was very abstract with like he's just following your dreams. Is there any specific things that you kind of have in mind for it outside of it being the biggest event in the West, which I think it very, very much has the potential to be with everything that you guys have?
So let's just say I love duck hunting. I love rifle hunting. I love hunting in general. And we have positioned ourselves in places that we can, expand on our
branch
weapon
off.
choice. Yeah. So that's my vision at this point. I also have a vision of like
ladles ready.
Yeah. I have a vision of like pack outs for different species and just a million different ideas. They'll have to tailor them in a little bit, but I'm dreaming hard these days.
No, I think that's awesome. Yeah, I was listening to, I think it was the one you guys did just on kind of like what Western Hunt Fest is and the event center in New Mexico, where it sounds like maybe there's potential down the road for there to be like some rifle stuff involved there. Is that kind of like the plan with that location?
We have several plans with several locations like that.
Okay, get it. No, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that is one of the reasons that we are choosing venues that way, and we want to go into that partnership and build something that not just us at Western Hunt Fest can be proud of, but our venue partners can be proud of and benefit from more than just a 3D archery shoot. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's great too, because I know there's so many people who are very much Western hunters, but maybe they just aren't bow hunters. And I think my initial introduction to hunting was through archery. But I'm not, like I said, I love all hunting and I'm willing to go out any time of the year, and I'm not opposed to any other style of hunting, and I have rifle hunted. And so that includes, like the folks who are, like I said, indeed Western hunters, but maybe they're out in different rifle seasons throughout the other months that everyone else isn't out there. So that gives them that same opportunity to go out and challenge. And I think right now, at least as far as I know of, the only kind of thing that exists for rifle shooting is like long range shooting matches, and those are just typically the people who compete in long range shooting matches aren't even hunters. Sometimes like they're just shooting to shoot most of the time.
Yeah, that we just have to talk to Whitney about the road hunting events and the Texas high fence events, because she'll be all in on those, I'm sure.
Yeah, hell yeah, sign me up. Sign me up. You get those Texans in there and they're all about it. No, I think that's super cool what you guys are doing with that. And yeah, to be able, I think the ceiling does not exist as far as what all you guys can do, and it's really cool to even see just this year, like you said, with you're in new venues, new locations, so you're starting to expand that way, and you even have just different ideas with these different locations, and trying to make it an all-inclusive event, for lack of a better word. Like I know you guys include some family stuff. You encourage bringing the kids, so there's things that the kids can do, and then like you said, in the future, some stuff for the rifle hunters as well. And I think I think it's incredible. And yeah, I definitely think you guys will be the ones to beat soon. If not sooner rather than later, because I feel like you guys are growing pretty quickly. If you guys had, was it 2, maybe 3 events last year?
Yeah, 2 events.
2 events, and then there's 5 this year, correct?
5 this year.
Yeah, I feel like that's quite the growth from 1 year to the next. So
Yes.
I'm definitely excited to see what you guys have going on, and yeah, count me in. I'll be a part of it moving forward. I think what you guys have going is incredible. So I always end these episodes. We're kind of coming up on an hour here. I'll start with Guy, and then we can go to Jeff. I ask all of my guests, what does wild strength mean to you? Feel free to interpret that question however you want. Some people take it quite literally and define wild strength in a literal sense. Some people take it from like a mental health side of things. Some people talk about it in the weight room. However you want to interpret that question. But Guy, I'll start with you. What does wild strength mean to you?
I could actually use up Jeff's time on that. I won't do that. I guess it would have to be the mental portion of it, right? Is looking at that next ridge or being down in that drainage and looking up and just doing it because I want to know that I can do it. Whether or not there's an animal up there, it's inconsequential. That's where I find my healing, my spirituality, my self-improvement, my betterment, mentally and physically. So for me, wild strength is going to be just, that next ridge, pushing to that next ridge, come hell or high water.
Jeff, what does wild strength mean to you?
Yeah, for me, wild strength is definitely going to go back to the mental toughness. So like when you're in the woods 15 days and you haven't seen an animal, you haven't heard an animal, it's that wild strength that gets you to the next ridge, gets you going further, gets you trying new techniques, just going, above and beyond and not giving up. Like growing up the way I did, I don't get down on myself. Like throughout a 30-day season, there's not a day that I'm like, oh, this isn't going to happen. I always 100% of the time am thinking it's going to happen, and it's going to happen like now. It's going to happen in 5 minutes. It's going to happen in 10 minutes. Even when I'm walking back in the dark, it's going to happen in the morning. For instance, I hunted a really good unit and I did not tag out, but the whole way home, I'm like, okay, so next year I'm going to do this and this is going to happen and this is how I'm going to play it. And it's just, that's wild strength to me. It's just that strength when, things aren't going your way, you're able to dig deep and keep going.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And it's funny you say that. When I was on my bear hunt, all right, like you can even ask Mike. Anytime we left camp and anytime we came back, I'm like, bear. Like I'm determined to see a bear. We're gonna be on a bear. I'm gonna get this bear as soon as I see it. Like I've never wanted something more in my life. But like you said, you go days without seeing one, or you had a whole season that you were in a unit that you did. That's the nature of it, and I think that's the challenge of it. And to continue to go back and to do hard things time and time again, the same hard things too. Like I think that's where people probably think you might be crazy because it's not even just that you're doing different hard things, you're doing the same hard thing season after season after season, knowing you're going to be successful. Like the time that you put out there, the effort that you put into it, like there's nothing that can stop you if you do that. Well, this has been great, guys. Jeff, where can people find you on social media if they want to, if they have any more questions about Western Hunt Fest that maybe I didn't ask? Where can you be found?
Yeah, so our Instagram handle is at Western Hunt Fest. Same with our Facebook, it's Western Hunt Fest. So you guys can ask questions along there. I do have a personal page that I respond to on the weekends. It's Devaulco, Devaulco. So if you want to ask me a specific question, that's my personal handle. But you can fire away at any time. Me and Guy are on the Instagram checking it at all times. I'm the one on Facebook, but we just created the account, so I'll be checking that until it grows a little bit bigger.
Nice. And Guy, where can people find you?
Western Contours, if it's, directly to me, or, like Jeffrey said, over at our Western Hunt Fest page on Instagram. Western Contours is probably the easiest for direct questions to me. And then you can email myself or Jeffrey with questions. Maybe you don't want to DM. It's either guy@westernhuntfest.com or Jeffrey@westernhuntfest.
Perfect.
And we try to be as responsive as we can. And sometimes there'll be a lag in us responding. It's just because I don't know if he's answering and Jeff doesn't know if I'm answering. So we'll drop the ball for an hour or two, but generally speaking, we're pretty fast on getting back to folks.
Kind of like how the podcast went.